We already have automated hotel check-in and even some cafeterias. And the McKinsey analysis suggests that 73% of food services and accommodation work is technically capable of automation. In the retail sector, it is estimated that as much as 53% of all activities could be automated. Activities such as stock management, logistics, and packing and shipping merchandise. Technical feasibility is, of course, only one determinant of when automation can and will occur. In other words, technology and labor are not perfect substitutes. The costs of investing in technology will also determine the timing, as will the cost of labor that serves as technology's alternative. Norms and regulations around such substitution will also matter significantly. For example, in China, where labor is much cheaper, factories feature 36 robots per 10,000 manufacturing workers, whereas in Germany there are 292, in Japan 314, and in Korea 478 robots, because the cost of labor is significantly higher there. But as the cost of assimilating these technologies into work environments inevitably decreases, a threshold will be crossed, whereby the economics of the substitution of human labor by machines may make it eventually inevitable. Acemoglu and Otter highlight that, by contrast, non-routine tasks, both manual and cognitive, will remain the province of humans. While most cognitive jobs require higher levels of education, and many manual jobs require less education, Acemoglu and Otter argue that all these non-routine tasks have one thing in common. They're far less susceptible to technological automation. The situation matters. While the framework Darren Acemoglu and David Otter provide for discerning which jobs are likely to be taken over by machines is very powerful, what's missing from their discussion is a characterization of the various types of situations in which people must perform their work. A job is not only about the tasks of which it's comprised, it's also about the work environment in which it is done. The characteristics of the workplace also matter. This brings us back to Andreas Xenakis from Chapter 2. Aboard the USS Blue Ridge, monitoring a flood of data about movements of all kinds in the South China Sea. The situation he's operating in is highly complex. He's got to factor into his judgments what advice to send to his commander, which reveals not only what the data is showing, but a host of other factors, such as the various relationships among the parties with territorial claims, which are by no means fixed, but are ever evolving, as well as what is in each of their strategic interests. He's also got to account for the foibles of human behavior, which often lead us to act against what is actually in our strategic interests. In addition, he's got to be alert about the possibilities of misinterpretation by various parties and of accidental incidents. A Chinese Coast Guard vessel might not have intended to plow into the path of a Vietnamese fishing boat that merely miscalculated the speed of the vessel and failed to get out of the way. This is why so many highly trained and deeply knowledgeable humans are manning the C4I monitors and chatting vigorously with one another to make their assessments on a moment-to-moment basis. There are many concurrent and emerging properties, and the various behaviors impact the potential chain of events. A powerful method for taking into account the nature of each situation and how it determines the skill set needed to do a job well was developed by researcher David J. Snowden and management consultant Mary E. Boone. They have proposed what they call the Cynefin framework, which was developed specifically regarding the work of high-level business executives, but also applies to work in general. Snowden and Boone contend that, too often, leaders take a one-size-fits-all approach to managing when the range of situations they must deal with actually varies greatly. Leaders should instead adjust their approach to management according to a number of factors. Snowden and Boone's delineation of these factors helps greatly to clarify the lines between the jobs that machines will be able to do on their own, and those that for the foreseeable future will still be done by humans. Cynefin is a Welsh word selected by Snowden, who is Welsh. It's one of those words expressing a concept that in other languages requires a whole phrase to describe. The meaning, as Snowden translates it, is the multiple factors in our environment and our experience that influence us in ways we can never understand. The framework breaks down management situations into 5 categories: simple, complicated, complex, chaotic, and disorder. Leaders have to first evaluate the situation they're in and sort it into one of those categories in order to determine the best strategy for managing it. Each category requires a different approach. For example, in both simple and complicated situations, cause and effect relationships are perceptible, and leaders can then assess the facts and decide what to do. But in complex and chaotic contexts, there's no apparent relationship between cause and effect. Emerging patterns and properties of both data and behavior determine how we should act. There's also a 5th category, disorder, in which even simple situations are managed poorly, perhaps because there are dueling factions within an organization, or an array of differing perspectives about the best course of action that lead to no clear-cut way to decide which should take precedent. There may also be so many issues that need immediate action that none of them truly get the attention they deserve. Combining this framework with Darren Acemoglu and David Autor's distinction between routine and non-routine jobs, we can come to a more refined assessment of why the fuzzy liberal arts grad will remain invaluable for so many kinds of work. Both routine manual and routine cognitive jobs that are performed in simple situations can be strictly broken down into a set of best practices, and they will increasingly be automated. For example, in logistics work, the tasks that are taken over might include the packing and shipping of items, or assembling goods on pallets. At German express logistics company DHL, 20% of logistics facilities are already automated, and they're piloting collaborations with Rethink Robotics, maker of a robot named Baxter. As mentioned, in hospitality, automated tasks will include checking people in and delivering room service within the highly controlled environment of elevators and hotel hallways. But additionally, in other industries such as healthcare, nursing assistants spend 2/3 of their time manually collecting health information, something that is already being made possible through passive sensor technology. All of these jobs contain a high proportion of manual tasks that can be codified into rules, and they are done in relatively simple, predictable environments. Many cognitive tasks are also largely routine and no more insulated from technology. They are highly uniform and can be carried out programmatically. Many cognitive jobs contain a high proportion of tasks that involve best practices, where employees are required to respond in predetermined ways. This is true, for example, in responding to customer service inquiries, for which many companies actually provide employees with pre-written scripts. Such cognitive jobs are also highly susceptible to automation, as we are seeing with a rapidly growing population of customer service bots, that is, computer programs that can decipher text through natural language processing or speak in a humanoid voice and automatically listen to customers' questions, and often their frustrations, given that the technology still has a way to go before it's up to human proficiency. It's also not only low-end cognitive jobs that are susceptible. While in retail, 47% of a floor salesperson's activities might be automated, according to McKinsey. Upwards of 86% of auditing, bookkeeping, and accounting could be done through technology. In other words, there is greater risk of automation for higher skilled cognitive rather than manual labor. In other fields, such as wealth management, where advisors take into account allocation preferences and risk tolerance and operate on best practice principles, aspects of the job are also tenuous. So-called robo-advisors already help optimize portfolios, nudging the role of financial planner toward a need for softer relationship management and interpersonal skills. Manufacturing largely follows strict rules and is performed in a relatively straightforward environment, i.e. the factory assembly space, which is highly controlled. For this reason, the automation that has already taken over so much of manufacturing will inevitably take over more and more of it. Indoor hydroponic farming or other types of work in structured environments will be more susceptible to automation than work such as livestock farming, where there is more variability. However, it's important to note that even in these highly structured environments, it's still early days for robotics. At Amazon, one of the most advanced warehouse systems in the world, where there are 30,000 little orange Kiva robots lifting and carrying goods from place to place, the capabilities are limited. According to robotics scientist Andreas Kohler, it's easier to build an autonomous car than a robot for a warehouse. Warehouses, because of their variety, are less structured than highways and freeways. In other words, even these highly controlled environments pose significant challenge. For work performed in complex situations, the ability of machines to take over for humans is even more limited. Machine learning seems to suggest that some tasks, routine and non-routine, cognitive and manual, that are performed in these environments may be able to be automated. Self-driving cars, for example, are performing cognitive as well as manual tasks that are in many ways non-routine. But the various environments in which self-driving cars are most successful might still be classified as more complicated on closer inspection. For example, highway driving, while more predictable than urban driving, is not done in a controlled environment like a factory. The reason automation has taken hold in mining is precisely because the environment, while dangerous for humans, is complicated rather than complex. The issues yet to be fully addressed before self-driving vehicles can be safely unleashed in all scenarios suggest that, although Google's self-driving cars hum around Mountain View and Uber's self-driving cars navigate the streets of Pittsburgh's Strip District, much more R&D is needed, and the deployment of self-driving cars will proceed in stages, with thresholds established for safety. Rather than the all-or-nothing serial automation being pursued by Google and Tesla, Daniela Roos, director of MIT's Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab, argues for parallel automation, or a guardian angel system that observes human drivers and helps intervene if and when onboard sensors can prevent an accident. Given the challenges of full autonomy in both high-speed and high-complexity environments, this driver-assist intelligent rather than autonomous approach, being pioneered by Toyota in partnership with MIT, shows promise. This is because in complex and even more so in chaotic and disordered situations, full automation is still a long way off, and it may never be able to take over fully for humans. These situations require dynamic, non-routine, highly agile interpretation and subsequent improvisation of analysis and action. While within each of these kinds of situations there are certainly repetitive tasks, both manual and cognitive, that will be handed over to machines, these environments require in situ learning by doing, learning that cannot be pre-programmed or taught in advance of getting your hands dirty. Flying an airplane is an example of a job in which much of the work has long been automated, and yet we haven't done away with pilots. Technological scaffolding can take care of nearly all of the best and even good practices in flight, but planes still require human input to supplement them in complexity. In fact, in spite of highly automated aeronautics and glass cockpit avionics, Boeing sees a need for the industry to hire 30,850 pilots every year for the next 20 years. The reason is that the art of flying a plane can quickly change from complicated to complex, and sometimes to chaotic, situations in which even pilots and their human judgment and experience are often not able to respond adequately. When both engines of the Airbus A320 being piloted by Captain Chesley B. Sully Sullenberger III were knocked out shortly after takeoff from LaGuardia Airport, with the plane soaring 3,000 feet above the Bronx, Sully drew on his extensive flight experience to courageously land the plane on New York's Hudson River. Having been a superb Air Force pilot who had spent years in the cockpit of the heavy supersonic F-4 Phantom fighter jet, he knew the theory of how to slow a powerless descent. In just seconds, he was able to triage the situation and take decisive action. Ironically, the extraordinarily difficult feat was made even harder by the plane's automated flight control system. As Sullenberger later explained, one of the features of the system, which is meant to avert disaster, is that at low flight speeds, regardless of how hard the pilot pulls back on the side stick, the flight control computers will not allow him to stall the wings and lose lift, which is exactly what he had to do to land on the Hudson. As he attempted to pitch the nose of the plane to slow his airspeed over the water, computer overrides nearly made that impossible. There is good reason that when a flight hits turbulence over the North Atlantic, those on board hope and pray that there is an experienced pilot up front who can draw upon expertise potentially broader and more comprehensive than what system designers can imagine. Is deep learning a different story? The greatly increased power of machine learning, which is sometimes referred to as deep learning, has led to predictions that further breakthroughs in artificial intelligence are right around the corner. This suggests that machines will actually become capable of artificial general intelligence, AGI, a form of intelligence that is truly human-like in all its forms. What does this bode for the fuzzy role in innovation? Well, the likelihood of machines ever attaining this capability is hotly debated, and if it is possible, that achievement is years and years into the future. To appreciate how far from general intelligence machines are, it's instructive to consider the limits of even the most impressive recent feats in AI. DeepMind, a company that was developed out of University College London's computational neuroscience unit, and was acquired by Google for $500 million in 2014, developed a program called AlphaGo. DeepMind used a combination of machine learning, decision trees, and algorithms, tools that together comprise what we call artificial intelligence, and all of the AI-trained AlphaGo to play the ancient Chinese game Go, with the aim of the machine defeating the game's human world champion. Computers have conquered many board games, including tic-tac-toe, checkers, Monopoly, Clue, and chess. But the AlphaGo victory makes a significant departure from these other feats in that it was not accomplished by straightforward brute force computational power. To win at these other games, the computers were programmed with the rules of the game and given sufficient computational power and speed so that they could calculate all possible next moves and evaluate the best one given the human player's move. The machines prevailed in these other games due to sheer computing power and memory, not because of anything that could be characterized as approximating human intelligence. Because in these pre-programmed approaches, every move was a known, the computer's greatest feat was not in attaining intelligence so much as it was in reducing each game to a simple situation that could be scripted. DeepMind, however, prevailed at Go using a different approach, which is the reason that it garnered so much international attention. South African entrepreneur Elon Musk, founder of Tesla and SpaceX, heralded it as a 10-year jump in AI. Others called it the dawn of artificial general intelligence. To understand how remarkable the computer's victory was, it's important to know a little bit about the game of Go. The board features 19 horizontal and 19 vertical lines. Players place small white and black stones at the intersections of the lines. Once a stone is placed on the board, it cannot be moved. If the stone is surrounded by an opponent's stones, then that stone is captured. The reason many found Deep Mind's win so profound was because Go has too many possible moves and combinations for a machine, even an extraordinarily powerful one, to be able to run through and evaluate all possibilities for a next move. AlphaGo engineers taught the program to play Go, not by pre-programming a vast storehouse of moves, but by writing machine learning algorithms. They trained AlphaGo using historical game data from thousands of past matches, and then allowed it to learn patterns by playing a human adversary. They even built other deep learning machines similar to AlphaGo, so it could compete against them using its own intelligence. All of this was done to give the program exposure to as many potential situations as possible. In other words, to give it experience. Because the potential game paths and combinations are too numerous to be pre-programmed, AlphaGo had to make reasonably informed decisions under conditions of ambiguity, just as we humans must often do. To facilitate this process, the programmers constrained the search depth, the extent to which the machine would sort through possible solutions, so that the computer would make the best relative move based on the information available, rather than trying to find the best possible move. In other words, while the brilliant programmers weren't able to reduce the complexity, or the dimensionality as they might say, of the game enough to codify best practices, they were able to give the machine the ability to recognize patterns, and then use good practices. Let's look at this subtle difference. As humans, we think through a set of possibilities as rigorously as possible, and then we act. We measure and analyze what we can, but when analysis can't definitively tell us what to do, we rely on intuition, or faith, or sometimes blind luck. Hungarian-British philosopher Michael Polanyi commented about this ability, which he said relies on tacit knowledge, that humans can know more than we can tell. AlphaGo's search depth allowed the machine to make moves that appeared to be the result of a decision-making process, remarkably similar to human intuitive thinking. Other moves seemed the result of original thought, rather than rote evaluation of past moves. But was AlphaGo tacitly aware of its decisions, or was it merely calculating probabilities faster than a human? AlphaGo also seemed to develop a distinctive style of play, as human players of the game do. Skilled human players develop preferences for certain tactics as they gain experience. Spectators who watched AlphaGo play champion Lee Sedol in Seoul, South Korea, reported there was a beauty revealed by a surprising set of choices that the machine made. But in actuality, they were surprising moves only because the machine acted on probabilities in areas of the board beyond the computational abilities of a human player. The irony of AlphaGo's win was that the engineers helped a machine beat a human by constraining its options so that it had to act more like a human. But after all, it was one enabled with prodigious real-time computational power. There is no question that AlphaGo's achievement is a landmark in the process of developing smarter artificial intelligence. But there are obvious distinctions between the human wetware, a term used to describe the human brain as compared with computer software and hardware, which develops its own capabilities, and a program such as AlphaGo, which, don't forget, required sophisticated programming by some of the most capable human minds. AlphaGo is still essentially reproducing intelligence, though perhaps creative machine intelligence will become a new form of intelligence. Fan Hui, the three-time European Go champion who lost 5 straight matches to AlphaGo, called the defeating move not a human move. But then again, the machine is entirely dependent on humans to create its internal logic, monitor it from a control room, and point it toward data to learn from, whereas the human mind teaches itself a great deal of what it knows. It is a brilliant technological advance when compared with our own abilities completing an isolated task such as playing Go. One more thought. Here's a twist on an old conundrum. If AlphaGo were alone and no one were around to watch it, would it be considered independently intelligent? Based on the current evidence, I think the breakthrough of true artificial general intelligence is yet to come. In fact, even David Silver, one of AlphaGo's creators, says that while this technology can be repurposed to help society in many profound ways, true AGI is decades away. Machines can't intuit, create, or feel. A whole set of human abilities still haven't been even approximated by artificial intelligence. For example, machines are still incapable of true idea origination. Russian programmers behind the Prisma app have figured out how to use neural networks to turn your latest photograph into a work of art in the style of Van Gogh or Picasso, which is certainly impressive and loads of fun. But there's no originality involved in doing so. Walk slowly with a student of contemporary art history through the Andy Warhol Museum in Pittsburgh, stand in front of Picasso's Guernica at Madrid's Reina Sofia, or drag your fingers along the cold, undulating steel of a Richard Serra to know art. Machines are also incapable of anything resembling human emotion, and therefore utterly lack empathy. Google can feed its AI engine 2,865 romance novels in order to make it more fluent in emotional language and situations. But will that really make it empathetic, capable of understanding love or desire? Will our machines laugh with Jane Austen and feel the pathos of Tolstoy? These are just two of the key characteristics of the mysterious phenomenon known as human consciousness, which even today's smartest machines don't possess. Anyone who saw the movie The Imitation Game, about how Alan Turing, the inventor of the computer age, cracked the Germans' Enigma code during World War II, can recall that context and human intuition played a central role in his machine's success. And more than 4 decades ago, Hubert Dreyfus, a philosopher at UC Berkeley, outlined the conceptual limits of artificial intelligence in his 1972 book, What Computers Can't Do. Those limits revolve around the difference between computation, which machines do very well, and consciousness, which machines don't possess. Many in the high-tech community ignored or mocked Dreyfus's argument at the time, but even today the debate continues. In 2011, along with Harvard philosophy chair Sean Durrance Kelly, Dreyfus said, "The greatest danger is not that it proves machines could be better versions of us, but that it tempts us to misunderstand ourselves as poorer versions of them." Leading experts in AI today generally agree that the advent of more powerful machine learning algorithms and more capable natural language processing cannot yet approximate human intelligence and are still in the in vitro phase. Even Netscape founder and billionaire venture capitalist Mark Andreessen, who was quoted in Chapter 1 as having once warned liberal arts students that they likely will end up working in shoe stores, argued in the Financial Times in 2014 that he doesn't believe robots will eat all the jobs. There is still an enormous gap between what many people do in jobs today and what robots and AI can replace, he said. And there will be for decades. Even when robots and AI are far more powerful, there will still be many things that people can do that robots and AI can't. For example, creativity, innovation, exploration, art, science, entertainment, and caring for others. We have no idea how to make machines do these. Today, Fei-Fei Li is the director of the Artificial Intelligence Lab at Stanford, and also a proponent of going beyond data-driven deep learning, embracing the fuzzy, emotional, and social components of intelligence. We humans are terrible at computing with huge data, she says, but we are great at abstraction and creativity. We need diversity of thought and the curiosity to ask the right questions, two characteristics nurtured through the liberal arts. And we need people passionate in all disciplines to bring that expertise to bear on our newest tools. There ought to be anthropologists, sociologists, and psychologists in every cutting-edge AI lab. Keep your own Iliad under your pillow. Harvard President Drew Faust advised the hundreds of cadets in her lecture at West Point in 2016. Lead also on behalf of the liberal arts, of the traditions of human experience and humane insight that they represent. Recognize the importance of the attributes they have given you. Mark their presence in your lives. Advocate for them in the lives of others. Be the world's best force for the humanities, and thus for human possibility. Technology's promise is great, but it requires our liberal arts in equal measure, the fuzzy and the techie working together in pursuit of shared human goals. Conclusion: partnership goes both ways. This book has focused on the role that those with liberal arts degrees can play in applying such emerging technologies to the creation of breakthrough innovations. Techies are their equal and vital partners, and they too can and must drive the process of bridge building between the fuzzy and the techie. Techies are crucial to this process, and will continue to drive groundbreaking new innovations that haven't yet even been conceived. Techies continue to spearhead the development of many of the most exciting new products and services. South African entrepreneur Elon Musk has pushed the frontiers of both electric vehicle adoption and the democratization of access to space travel. Larry Page and Sergey Brin have made the world's information available and are today on to new challenges such as bringing about universal access to the Internet. Rodney Brooks, founder of Rethink Robotics, has forged new frontiers in what our robots can help us manufacture. Other techies are behind pioneering the natural language processing that is improving how we command our technology with our own voice, making it what we say rather than what we see that counts. Amazon, for example, is offering its voice command technology, which powers the voice of Alexa in the Amazon Echo, to any innovator who wants to make use of it through its Alexa Skills Kit. The software toolkit is available for free, and to further spur adoption, the company created a $100 million investment fund to support entrepreneurs in developing ideas. Companies such as Pullstring, founded by the techie folks behind Pixar and named after the Pullstring Toy Story character Woody, are packaging up the functionality to easily create chatbots that can respond to queries in Slack or Facebook Messenger and perform basic conversations. Even Google's deep learning, such as that used by AlphaGo, is being made available through its TensorFlow machine learning library and is being put to use in incredible ways. Makoto Koike, an automotive designer in Japan, for example, used TensorFlow to make his parents' lives easier through machine learning. By assembling Arduino hardware, a Google Raspberry Pi internet-connected computer board that costs around $35, and off-the-shelf cameras, he built a machine that helped his father, a Japanese cucumber farmer, classify and sort cucumbers by quality with 70% accuracy. Koike first manually photographed and classified thousands of cucumbers, and then used those images as training data to teach TensorFlow what specific features in cucumbers represent quality, and what to try to identify in future photographs. Techies may often be stereotypically characterized as geeks with little interest or aptitude in fuzzy concerns, but this is as untrue as the arguments denigrating the value of liberal arts in our technological world. The fact is that techies have driven many partnerships across the fuzzy-techie divide, and they can be highly effective bridge builders. Take the case of Doug Rickett, the co-founder and CEO of PayJoy. He's a former Google software engineer who teamed up with a fuzzy named Mark Hainan, a history and immigration studies major from Amherst College, to found their company. They met while working on the Google Maps team, where they were mapping Africa. After working at Google, Rickett augmented his expertise in technology by getting out from behind a computer screen and traveling to villages in the small West African country of Gambia, working for a social enterprise called D.Light that is trying to bring solar energy devices to poverty-stricken communities. Though still a director of engineering based out of Hong Kong, Rickett turned himself, in effect, into an anthropological researcher, spending months in African villages with potential customers who he realized had no access to credit. Without credit, the high upfront cost of solar panels proved prohibitive. He further observed that many of these same people purchased prepay cell phone plans from local kiosks. Why couldn't they purchase solar panels in the same way? He wondered. Rickett devised a software solution for D.Light that enabled customers to purchase their new solar panels over time, only a few dollars at a time. Returning to the United States, Rickett decided to apply that same basic model to helping the roughly 45 million Americans without credit gain access to today's greatest tool, a smartphone. Teaming up with Hainan, the chief business officer, Rickett launched PayJoy in 2015, enabling consumers to buy phones over time at much lower interest rates than the alternatives. After only 1 year in business, PayJoy had raised over $18 million from venture capitalists, and the company's ultimate goal is to move beyond the U.S. market and to empower anyone on the planet to purchase a smartphone, or indeed any new type of device. The point of emphasizing the role of fuzzies is not to say they have an exclusive on the opportunities opening up. It is to say that the fuzzy combined with the techie is the formula for the most transformative and most successful innovations, the ones that will most effectively solve the many vexing problems to be tackled and will most humanely enhance our lives. Just as techies like Doug Rickett stand to benefit a great deal in their efforts to drive innovation by learning about fuzzy perspectives and methods of inquiry, the ability of fuzzies to partner with techies will be greatly enhanced if they develop their own technological literacy. As we progress into an ever more technological future, the goal must be to bridge the divide between the fuzzy and techie in our educational systems all the way from children's earliest learning experiences through college and graduate study, and to make them reflect this necessary duality in society. Two cultures conjoined. In a famous lecture at Cambridge University in 1959 titled The Two Cultures, British politician Charles Percy, C.P. Snow, who was both a physicist by training and a novelist, lamented a growing divide between the sciences and humanities, speaking of the mutual incomprehension, hostility, and dislike that had taken hold. As the 20th century progressed and the computer revolution unfolded, information technology joined the hard sciences on their side of this chasm. It is time to build more bridges across the divide. C.P. Snow also said in his lecture that the clashing point of two subjects, two disciplines, two cultures, of two galaxies, so far as that goes, ought to produce creative chances. That is precisely the case with the merging of the fuzzy and the techie. The creative breakthroughs to be achieved by facilitating more appreciation and fluency across the chasm demand that we innovate in education with the same kind of vigor that so many entrepreneurs are bringing to innovation in products and services. This is the best way to ensure not only that the potential of the new technologies is realized, but also, just as important, that people are prepared to perform the jobs of the future. As with the new work being created in helping to make self-driving cars safe, and with the 2,500 new jobs as fashion stylists that Stitch Fix has created, many new types of work and specific jobs will likely emerge. Just as economist John Maynard Keynes couldn't predict the many new jobs that would emerge in the post-Great Depression economy, it's not possible to accurately forecast which new jobs might develop. Some analysts surmise that the number of new types of jobs will be substantial. In fact, the U.S. Department of Labor predicted in a report that as many as 65% of children in school today will work in jobs that have not yet been created. Considering someone born today could be working well into the 2080s, the expectation that we can forecast any of their needs beyond self-reliance and creativity reveals our own hubris. While we cannot know what they will be, we can safely conjecture that many, if not most of them, will require technological literacy. Motivated learners can sufficiently master the technology with a wealth of resources now available, as Caitlin Gleason did before launching her innovative healthcare technology business Eligible, and as Katrina Lake has done in collaborating with data scientist Eric Colson and building Stitch Fix. But if learning about the nature of the tech tools and the underlying principles of their operation were a standard part of a liberal arts education, included in the syllabus of how we learn and question, perhaps that would truly empower legions more fuzzies to collaborate with techies. One need look no further to see the benefits of bridging the divide in educational programs than the symbolic systems major at Stanford, launched by a group of professors that included Tom Wasso, who was the dean of undergraduate students at Stanford University from 1987 to 1991. I spent a lot of time thinking about what undergraduate education should be, he recounts. Wasso himself combined tech and fuzzy expertise in his own education, getting an undergraduate degree in mathematics from Reed College and then a PhD in linguistics from MIT. Working at the interface of language and computing, Wasso was one of the pioneers who contributed insights that have made natural language processing possible today. He could see the writing on the wall about the enormous benefits of combining techie and fuzzy skills, and the Symbolic Systems program brought together courses in computing with ones in philosophy, logic, linguistics, and psychology. It was a major that didn't want to play by the traditional STEM versus liberal arts rules, and neither have its prolific cast of entrepreneurial graduates, who include Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, Mike Krieger, co-founder of Instagram, Scott Forstall, software creator of the iPhone and iPad, and Marissa Mayer, early Google executive and CEO of Yahoo. Google's VP of Product Management for Android, who also helped launch the Chrome web browser, got a degree in symbolic systems along with a master's in psychology. And Facebook's Chief Product Officer, Chris Cox, also graduated from the program. Even Mark Zuckerberg admits that the program churns out among the most talented people in the world. Wasso is a quiet and discerning fuzzy techie figure at the very heart of our technological world. Other bridge-building fields of study have been created already, of course. Psychology, linguistics, and neuroscience come together to make cognitive science. Sociology and civil engineering have been combined in urban policy. Computing and design have been combined in data visualization, and psychology and computing have been combined in usability research. More such explicitly fuzzy techie majors should be fostered, such as combining philosophy and engineering into design ethics, anthropology and data science into data literacy, sociology and statistics into human analytics, literature and computer science into narrative science, and law and data science into predictive regulation. Momentum behind doing so is building. One academic institution answering the call is the Rhode Island School of Design, RISD, where the Airbnb founders studied, and Esther Wojcicki delivered a 2016 commencement address. RISD advocates what it calls STEAM education, the blending of technical fluency, STEM, with art and design, A, and it's catching on. The Andover, Massachusetts public school system has made STEAM education a primary goal. In DeSoto, Texas, the DeSoto West Middle School offers the iSteam 3D Magnet Academy, where students learn about urban planning by using Minecraft to engineer the city, and then a MakerBot 2 3D printer to bring their city to life by printing physical buildings and roads. Students use Fold It, a game where players fold proteins in new ways, and in the process crowdsource new combinations for scientists to potentially cure diseases, to learn about chemistry. In 2013, then president of RISD John Maeda helped kick off the bipartisan Congressional STEAM Caucus, focused on making this a national priority. We must no longer quarrel over a false dichotomy between STEM and liberal arts education. As we collect more data, we require great consideration as to what we ought to do with it. As we build devices, we must interrogate their design. As we construct algorithms, we must ask what assumptions they are based on and consider the protections against biases. As we create more data scientists, we require more data literacy. Fuzzies and techies should not be considered as oppositional. They are concurrently vital. As the new tools allow greater access to the power of technology, advances in our machines will require greater engagement of our humanity. First the muscle work, then the routine work, then maybe the real brain work. Author Kurt Vonnegut wrote of machine automation in his 1952 book, Player Piano. We have been fascinated by technological change for decades, and indeed today's fears shouldn't be blindly whitewashed with optimism. But as we look to the timeless skills that will keep us relevant in a dynamic world we cannot forecast, one way we will develop these very real skills from within our communities is by nurturing, rather than shunning, the liberal arts inquisition of who we are, what we want, and why we matter. By pairing fuzzy with techie, techie with fuzzy, we can manage the accelerating changes facing our world. Our education, products, and institutions should ideally all be 1 part fuzzy and 1 part techie in order to capitalize on the untold opportunities of our fast-evolving, tech-driven future.